No, I figure if they're looking at me, they should enjoy it.
Oh, wow.
You want to hack my laptop and look at me typing all day
Now
long?
you're just asking for it. I don't know. I'm paranoid about it.
I was digging for gold earlier. I hope somebody saw that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trends with Benefits, a weekly podcast here at Digital Trends where we gather a roundtable of experts and discuss the topics of the day. So joining us today here, we're in the, what did we decide to call this room? The galley? Or is that what?
The
Yes.
DT-atorium.
The DT-atorium. All right, changes
Like
every
sanatorium?
time. Yes.
DT-atorium.
That's essentially what it is. And throughout this show, you may hear birds in the background and the swinging of a golf club, and that's because Dan is going to be swinging it. Dan, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Kind of joining us is Dan.
Kind of. We're interrupting Dan's golf.
I'm not
golf
all
game.
here right now.
Are you ever all here?
No.
Okay, there we
Perfect.
go. We established that. Caleb,
Is that a
Hey,
real
how's
answer?
it going?
doing well.
I am very happy to be here.
And Nick.
Hey.
Hey. All right, and we're also videoing this for the first time. So I hope everybody's aware of that and
Are
is
we being
extremely
watched
nervous.
from multiple angles?
Yes,
Fun? Okay.
all angles. Although, if you're watching from Caleb's laptop, I guess that's a different kind of view. That you may not want that one.
Hey, it's pretty good
Which,
view.
that is
Looks
the
pretty good over here.
that is kind of the first topic of the day. I guess not necessarily the video side of it, but the big news that Samsung came out with this week regarding their televisions are apparently listening to you, their smart TVs, and they've advised not to talk about personal information, which you would talk about personal information in your own living room.
Well,
ever. I would
to
never bring
clarify,
something up.
Samsung didn't exactly come out with the news. It was outed, so to speak, by, well, there was a Reddit thread followed or preceded, it's really hard to tell, by one article that insinuated that Samsung's TVs were always listening. And then the media just had a field day with this, where they were like, shh, don't tell secrets in front of your TV, and your TV is spying on you, and your TV is evil. So that was the big scuttlebutt. Samsung took a lot of heat for that. I kind of went out on a limb and penned an op-ed for DT basically saying, shut the hell up. This is complete BS.
Really?
Because basically what's happening is on a broad scale, Samsung's getting singled out for doing something that lots of other technologies do, like the Amazon Echo, the speaker. You have to wake it up by saying Alexa, and then Alexa will listen to you, go to the cloud, process what you told it, and then come back with an answer.
Your cell phone.
Cell phone. Well, with your cell phone, you wake it up by pressing a button or something, or you can turn on Hey Siri, right?
Hey, I'm my conspiracy theorist hat. You don't necessarily have to push a button on a cell phone. If it's on, they can listen.
Well, they can. They can, right? And that's the thing. They could, but that doesn't mean that they are.
No, that's true with any device.
And also with Cortana, right? Okay, so you've got all these mainstream devices that are essentially doing the same thing. And part of the crux of the problem, as I see it, is that they're taking a human behavior, listening, right? And they're applying it to a technology. That technology is not smart enough, unless you program it to be, to discern whether it should be paying attention to you or not paying attention to you. And in the case of a Samsung TV, it has to have a wake word, hi TV, in order for it to wake up and go, okay, now I'm paying attention to you and going to do whatever you ask, right?
But there must have been some kind of fear, right, that some hacker could get into it?
What happened
what
was
actually is
somebody
the fear?
took a close look at Samsung's smart TV privacy policy, specifically the section that goes underneath the voice recognition thing, and the way it was kind of poorly worded. If you take sections of it out of context and you don't understand how the TV works, you're going to be like, well, hold on a second. Because the thing that people got upset about is like you're taking what I say to the TV and you're sending it to a third party, and they didn't explain what the third party was. Turns out it's a cloud-based speech recognition program that processes what you say and then helps the TV know what to do with it after that. It also can store some of that information insofar as it will, it can differentiate different dialects and different accents throughout a region, because different people say different words different ways. But when you're really nebulous about the description, you're just thinking you're sending what I'm saying out across the internet for anybody to grab and use, you know. So like if you're having sex on your couch, everybody's hearing it, you know. This is the mainstream worry. You'd read out your PIN number or social security number on the phone while you're talking to your bank, your TV's hearing it. That stuff is not happening now.
See, that's why I have a Band-Aid on my computer's
exactly.
camera. I'm that paranoid guy. I'm the paranoid guy.
For it to happen, though, somebody would have to hack the TV or hack your computer. They'd have to hack the system. And in that regard, yeah, it's a worry. Like, you should be concerned about people looking in your home through your TV and listening to you.
I'm going to do a counterpoint, though. Like, there are so many devices now coming into the house that have a microphone or a camera that you are trusting that what they say is what they're actually doing, right?
Right.
But they're always on. Like you say you need a magic word to, you know, like Xbox or Cortana or whatever to activate it to pay attention, but they're still always listening for that word. So technically they are always listening.
That's true,
you know
but what
I
are
mean?
they doing with that information?
That is the big question that people that are paranoid are going to be worried about. And technically, it's kind of like it goes Orwellian in a sense of having cameras on every corner, right? It goes back to if you're not doing anything bad, you shouldn't worry about it. You're not going to attract attention. But it still makes people somewhat uncomfortable until they get used to it. But at least they know with those cameras that, you know, the police or whoever that is in a position of authority to fight crime is kind of using that data, and it's not going out to the general internet, right? Where like something that is internet enabled and connected, you don't necessarily know where that's going. Like you said, the terms of service, the TOS, nobody reads those, right? Unless someone
Well, and just a third-party speech recognition software, like what's their policy? How's that working?
Right. And what kind of a deal does Samsung have with them?
Mm-hmm.
Nick, you were in the middle of this. What do you think, man?
We don't really know what the third party, I mean, there's nothing really included in there about whether they store it, how long they store it. They're obviously doing something with it to do the type of thing that you're talking about where they learn accents and stuff. So I think there still is an X factor there. I think, Dan, what you're talking about is, you know, people are alarmed by the capability, even if the way it's being used right now is nebulous. I mean, privacy policies change too, and none of us read them. You know, if you fire up your Samsung Smart TV and it says, "Wait, before you can, you know, watch Jon Stewart, you have to accept this new changes that I accept." You know, you don't look at that to look at, wait, we're actually changing the way this, what we're doing with this data that we were already collecting, and now we're going to share it. I think a more realistic scenario than actually spying on you is like sharing that stuff with advertisers, where if you're talking about a certain product or something, that's feeding into a database, and now we know what type of things you consume, and we can feed you better advertisements that you're more susceptible to.
Right.
I think also
they're not doing that, but I can understand why people are a little bit skeptical or paranoid because the capability is there. But I do think that the reaction was totally outsized, and nobody was paying attention. People were infuriated over what's not happening.
That's the thing. I think this is a totally worthwhile conversation to have. I think actually we're past the point. Well, we should have had this conversation, like a heated debate, years ago, when at the Black Hat Hackathon or whatever, they hacked a Samsung Smart TV and showed, look how easy it is to break into your living room this way. But what I objected to was the fact that not just Samsung, but a specific Samsung product was targeted as this evildoer when there are so many other devices out there that do exactly the same thing.
I mean, if you think about it, well, one, mobile phone, but the second one is Xbox. That was the biggest one that like kind of freaked people out because you have this thing with a camera and a microphone that is always on when your Xbox is on.
We're placing trust in these devices. We're placing trust in these corporations not to do horrible things. And it is not inconceivable to think, well, maybe they're doing it on the sly and just not telling us. Now, if that came out, it would be curtains. I mean, that would be a huge like corporate scandal, and it would be a PR nightmare for these people.
Any company would purposely do that, but it's more about the vulnerabilities, right? Getting hacked, and also what if like, you know, the DEA or somebody comes in with a warrant and they have access to this technology, just kind of
Great
like
example.
you know, like that. Then they can start spying on people in their own living rooms, and you know. Granted, you know, most people have nothing to worry about. That's not the issue. It's the fact that you're losing privacy without knowing it.
Yeah.
Right? So,
well, you brought up advertisers too, and that's the other thing that Samsung had
Oh,
going
the
on this week.
Samsung
It's a
insertion.
bad week for Samsung. So it was advertisements, and Caleb, I know you're the television expert. I know you know what's going on with this, but it was advertisements that were popping up while people were watching movies.
Yeah, so Samsung has yet to get to the bottom of this. Their official response makes it seem as if they don't really understand what's going on.
By the way, there's an imminent threat we could be hit with a golf ball at any minute.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and
Or a golf
duck
club,
over here.
which would actually concern me.
The club would be worse, yeah.
You know what's weird is if I search Samsung insertion, it doesn't come up with anything on the internet. How odd. No, but the problem is, nice one, Dan. You'll get at least 150 out of that. The problem is that nobody's paying attention.
133.
You know
yeah.
what?
Sorry, well, you called the shot. I had to
That's
check.
true. That's true. No, it's not all about me. It's all about the golf. So what's happening? Let's say you've got Plex on your Samsung Smart TV. It's a really popular media application that lets you stream movies and photos and music that you have anywhere on your local network. You just stream it through your TV. It's great if you like to catalog rip your own Blu-ray movies, or if you're the sort of person that acquires TV shows in certain ways.
Obviously, legal manners.
Yeah, obviously. So, but what's happening is you're watching this movie, and then out of nowhere, this ad the movie stops and an ad gets inserted.
In your own stuff.
Yeah,
over
your
own
stuff, not in something you're watching on Hulu or YouTube or something.
As if using the app on the Samsung TV requires that you sit through some sort of advertising, which is completely going over the line. Now, to be fair, Samsung is, like I said, they're acting like they're not exactly sure how this is happening. And there is some rumbling about possibly a Yahoo app possibly being the culprit, or at least associated with it. But that's a problem. That's something I object to. That is BS, and I would absolutely not stand for that.
Okay.
And that's one of those things. It's just an unfortunate coincidence that Samsung would get berated for this this listening smart TV thing, and then have this right on the heels. Yeah, they're getting smacked around a little bit.
It's a crappy week for Samsung's PR team.
I wouldn't want to be. And I mean, I'm talking to their PR team, and you can tell they're not exactly pleased with having to deal with all this. And I wouldn't be either.
How do they not know where it's coming from? How can they not figure that out? I mean, it seems like you could just, in their facility, take one app off, test it out if it doesn't happen. I mean, it seems like there's ways.
Yeah, they didn't.
That
they
a
didn't
massive
give
manufacturer
a
could
great
figure
answer to
that out.
I feel like they were blaming it on. I mean, their official response was this is some sort of like error, and they're not really sure what's going on. But I mean, things like don't just happen.
No.
Ads just don't code themselves into software. Like they have a much better idea, I'm sure, of what's happening. And I think it might be a case of them pushing things a little too far to see what they get away with, and now that they're being called, it's it's just, whoops, how did this happen? Yeah,
it's like it's your television. How do you not know?
Well, and part of the whole growth of smart TVs is that is the interactive feature. So you could be watching the Super Bowl, and an ad for Budweiser. Well, that's a bad example. An ad for something comes up, and you could be given a prompt to buy that thing, which you could buy through your smart TV because it's got a web browser, and so a pop-up will. And Dish Network does this too. If you'd like to learn more about this, press this certain button, and so that's not entirely new. That in and of itself is kind of invasive, and people don't like that. But to just put it in the middle of your own personal crap is just no good.
I agree. I don't know. I'm not as I have a Samsung television too, but that kind of stuff. I'm sorry, it makes me paranoid.
Do you have a Band-Aid over the webcam yet?
I don't, but I'm going to now.
And put
now,
that
as soon as I go home, I'm just going to be completely silent walking through my own living room. No, it won't be that bad. But yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be some kind of regulation. Maybe this will spark that. And you're right, we should have had that conversation years ago. But at least it's happening now, I suppose.
People are talking about it. That's the one good outcome.
Yeah.
And if anything else, corporations are going to be wary of implementing policies and just kind of trying to slip them in there, slip in. And these privacy policies, nobody reads them because A, they're like ridiculously long, and B, it's a bunch of lawyer speak, and you don't want to read that crap anyway. I just want to watch TV, man. You know what I mean? And so you skip right through it, and you've accepted responsibility for God knows what. Time to change.
Yep. Something's got to change in all this. All right, well, here's something that's changing right now in the UK, and that is this has been a frequent topic on the show, and it's actually not a drone topic, which is rare, but it's a topic. Everybody's cheering for that one, apparently.
Not a drone topic.
It's about driverless cars. So we've talked about this on the show before.
Now Dan sits down.
Dan is fully involved. Conspiracy Dan is back in.
He's got something frightening about these driverless cars to share.
So
It's the same initials as Caleb. It's amazing.
Yep.
oh yeah, conspiracy. All right, so they basically have all the documentation drawn up. The government has pretty much approved driverless car testing on UK roads, with the ultimate goal being by 2020 to have them fully integrated into the road system, laws on the books, everything set. So they're going to have it on there. They're saying they see no problem with driverless cars, and part of this, it's this huge document that's kind of on it, but they're saying one of the things, that it could free up to 235 hours a year spent by drivers behind the wheel, because they don't have to pay attention, really. You're in a driverless car if you're sitting there. And they're also saying they don't see any reason why you would have to have a driver's license to ride in one of these cars, to be in one of them. That's the part that bothers me. I think no matter what, you should still have somebody with a license if this thing goes haywire and you need to take the wheel. Like, is there going to be like an override function? I don't know. That's the part that I'm most bothered with.
Well, I think the way we have the laws, or at least like in California where Google is testing their unmanned cars, I mean, you not only have to have a license, you're responsible for whatever the car does. So
They also watch your eyes and pay and look to see if you're paying attention, right?
the driverless cars, do?
Yeah,
the
the
Google
driverless
ones?
cars, like the Audi ones they have at CES and stuff.
Okay, I don't know about the Audi ones, but
Yeah, you have to be aware of what the car is doing.
Well,
so you can
the
react.
UK thing is way more lenient than that. They're saying, not only do you not have to have a license, they're saying, it would probably be a good way for people drinking to get home, because you can ride in this thing and you don't have to drive it. I mean, it's just
Are you talking about Ireland?
yeah.
No, Scotland. Because, right on the car it says, great. It's right there on the car. You can see it.
It does see it.
I love that they call it a light touch approach. It's like, we're going to have a light hand with this. Go ahead with your driverless cars.
I mean, it's nice to think that you don't have to have a license. I mean, that could help a lot of people. But I don't what happens when the car actually does something? Who's responsible for it? I think
they cover that in there, saying in theory it would be the manufacturers that would have to pay for
okay.
it.
I don't
So
think
that's
that's
like a
gonna-
huge.
Yeah.
I mean, if I
obviously
build
a lot of this-
autonomous cars, I'm not selling them in the UK then, because that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens if it breaks down? If you don't know how to operate a car? What do you
There's
do?
got to be
Well, first of
somebody
all,
with
it's not a
license. Like,
car. It's a pod. They don't even acknowledge it as a car. They call it
They
a
won't-
pod. And second of all, it would take like 1.5 people on the football team to just pick it up and move
So they're
it.
talking about more or less 100% autonomous, no steering wheel, no pedals,
it look-
nothing. You set in your route and you hit go, and it just gets you there.
in their demonstration, they show a steering wheel in there, but who knows?
I mean, why have a steering wheel?
why have it if you don't have a license, don't know how to drive?
Yeah.
I mean, I do not like the idea. I mean, even when we're flying,
There
we
is a
all know
steering wheel.
that most of the time when you're flying, it's probably on autopilot.
What happens when you
But
get-
when I still want somebody there.
Yeah, when you fly on autopilot, someone still needs to take off and land. Like,
It-
how do
yeah.
you park the car when you get to where you're going?
I mean, we have cars that we have to drive manually that can park themselves, though. I mean, the parking
Yeah,
is solved.
that part
That's
they've
not the
got.
hardest part. That's not taking off and landing a plane.
The parking is solved to an extent. You go to where a spot is, it tells you whether the spot is large enough, and then you go park, and then it does.
I think
But
that's
if-
pretty solved.
What about, to me, that's a leap in terms of I'm at home and I want to go to the, downtown Portland to Stumptown or whatever, and it goes there and then starts by itself looking for a parking spot when it thinks it's near. I mean, that's a whole nother level of automation at that point.
Sure. I mean, we're not quite there yet, but if you can make it go around, if you can make it recognize a spot, if you can make it park in that spot, and these are going to be able to drive themselves on the street, then is it that much of a stretch to think that it could,
What if?
plan out a little route?
I love the what if question. My sons do this all the time. What if
In a world.
what if you have a cast and you can only walk a certain distance and the car parks at the first spot it thinks is free and it's 3 blocks away
such a
versus
stupid
going
example.
and looking closer. You know what I mean? Like
So
the
we need
whole autonomous parking, the whole from door to door is
So we
weird to
need
me.
an I have a cast setting for all our autonomous cars in case.
Or what if I'm just lazy and, you know, why did it park this spot and not in this other spot, you know? Like,
I think that's the least of our problems, actually.
Well, what if you have to stop suddenly because you know you got the runs and you need to go to the bathroom? Like, how do you tell the car
Emergency
that you
stop.
have diarrhea?
There's a
that's
handle.
Right.
That sounds like a messy
No shit
situation.
handle.
I should point out these do have steering wheels, so I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah,
it's still on the wrong side, and I don't know. I don't know why it's there if these things are supposed to be autonomous, but they're not. You know what they're not talking about is closed courses. Here, they're talking about like 4 cities in the UK that would be participating, and that's pretty much it. They're just saying, you know what, we're gonna
so could you like
see how it
just
goes.
literally like bundle up the kids into the car and go to school. See you later, kids.
I really like that idea.
Yeah,
Can
it's
we
kinda-
make that happen?
It's kind of convenient.
I
right?
mean,
Unless
put
you
them
have
on a
some-
bus right now. It's the same thing.
There's still a guardian.
Yeah, but you trust school bus drivers? Jesus.
Oh, well,
I would
come on.
rather
If you put your
my
8-year-old
kid in
kid-
a little pod than on a bus with like 40 other
No
little
way.
kids and a weird pedophile driver.
As someone who
Come
grew
on.
up out in the country riding a bus every single day, it is absolute chaos. It's a whole different world. So you're in there. It's a no man's
It's totally
land.
fun though, right?
Well, you
go where the
figure
speed
out how to
bumps and
survive.
whoosh.
Yeah, you figure out how to survive in the back of the bus. That's what you do.
Think about it this way though. Let's go CD, right? Like I bundle my kids into the car. They're 8 and 6 to go to school, and there's some predator who's driving a car, and like, oh, there's
he
some
runs them
kids
off the
by
road?
themselves. Like, who knows, right?
Deciding who's a
yeah,
predator.
how does he?
I would much rather have an adult in that car with them than them be by themselves. What if the car breaks down or like, you know, there's an accident, God forbid, somewhere, right?
I don't know what to tell you, man.
I like what if.
You've
What
spun it.
if?
You've spun it to where no one can disagree with you. Is what you're saying.
I'm good at that.
Kids, dude. Kids. All right.
Think of the children.
All right. Well, the final story that we've got here. This is an article on digitaltrends.com, which you can go to Digital Trends and find out about everything. But this is one. I don't know whether this is the ultimate lazy tool or actually could help you out. It's called
Self-driving cars.
not self-driving cars. It's I'm looking for the actual name of this product. Well, okay, it's that basic. It's called the Food Sniffer.
Yes.
And what it does, it's basically a little tool that you hold up, and it has like an electronic nose, as it's described in here. And you hold it up to any kind of food, like anything that's in your refrigerator, meat, whatever, and it will tell you the temperature, humidity, ammonia, and analyzes other organic compounds, other organic compounds, and will tell you if it's still good or if it's spoiled. So you can essentially hold it up like your milk.
Do you have to
do the
read
milk
out
test.
that and come up with that yourself, or does it actually just?
It works. It works with a cell phone app. So it works with an app that it'll team up with that and let you know whether or not that food is still good or not.
I think that's awesome personally because, you know, most people try to go by best by date or sell by date, which are totally. Like, people don't know how to read those. Like, they think
Right.
sell by date is the expiration date.
See,
and
I
it's
go
not.
with that because what about with milk? It seems like every time if I were to go like a day past that, I swear it started to curdle in me.
I don't
You-
think
Nick,
so.
You
Nick has his
guys-
own personal.
You are also that's all wrong. Expiration, sell by. You don't need a sniffer. You just use your common sense and intuition. If it smells bad, don't eat or drink it.
If it has
tastes-
mold on it.
And
right?
yet,
No, if
I've
it has
seen
mold, you
Nick.
cut it off.
I've seen Nick in that mid zone where like he's about to pour his bowl of breakfast flakes, and he's like, really checking out the. I'm not sold.
Well, that's the thing.
I'm just
do
not
it.
sure.
That's the thing.
And
There's a
then
gray
you
area.
pour it, and then you eat it, and you're like, yep, that was bad.
Oh, yeah. See, I would never eat it.
What if Nick was not a good participant in this particular conversation? The reason being is I've seen Nick put moldy cheese on his sandwich,
Oh, really?
and he's like, "It's going in the microwave. It doesn't
No,
matter."
See-
I cut the mold off.
Yeah,
No,
and
I've
that's
seen you-
perfectly acceptable, by the way, because.
Cutting mold off.
There
is,
may have
Look,
been a
but
little
he
mold on there
has
still.
used it with mold on the cheese.
It's
Look,
completely
Do you do that with
innocuous.
bread?
Yeah.
You'll scrape off the mold and still eat the bread.
You know, I mean, it depends. How much bread do I have? If it's the last thing I'm on, if I'm gonna have a sandwich and it's
Speaking
gonna have
like
a little
a
bread,
college
or
student.
I'm gonna have no sandwich,
Well,
then
you can
I'm
toast.
gonna have a moldy
You
sandwich.
can toast. You can toast the bread and then scrape off the moldy part, and it's like it was never even there. You've
Out
not
of
only
sight, out
killed
of
it, you've not only killed the mold but removed it.
I mean, you don't taste the mold. It's like one of those. Who really cares?
Hey, you know what? If it doesn't kill you, it just makes your immune system stronger.
And
Who's
that
the one that-
okay,
who's the
all
one
right,
that
hold on
always
a
gets
second.
sick, Dan?
See, that's the problem. Is that
Not the one eating the mold.
It seems like there's two categories of people. There are the people who think they have some sort of like superior grasp on food science that other people don't have, and then there's other people who admit they have no freaking idea. And need the help. We need this thing to prove, like, the people like me and Nick who have sort of, because I'll do calculations, like what part of the chicken was it that I cooked?
Oh,
how
with chicken,
well was
no.
it cooked?
I just assume it's bad.
How well was it cured? How. What's because look, if I take like some white meat chicken and I put it in a box of Zatarans, that's good for like 3 weeks. Okay,
3 weeks.
you know how much salt is in there,
waiting
dude?
for
You're like
3
salt
weeks?
curing a cooked product. There is no
God.
way in heaven anything bad is growing on.
Problem,
that.
well, you wouldn't be
It's
able to.
not possible.
You wouldn't be able to smell it anyway over all of that.
Look,
Like,
I
it
know
could
our
be
listeners know
completely-
exactly what I'm talking about. You know when your food is safe and when it's not. You open
Exactly.
it.
No,
like, you
that's
open
why I
it up
trust
and
the
it's
FDA.
Like, the hell no. Like when the water starts separating from other things, and there's some milky white business
Then you
in
stir
there.
it.
Wait.
They
Let
stir it.
Wait a minute.
It works though.
You had to get to that point where you learned that, right? Like, I mean, you didn't just you weren't born understanding your tolerances of food and what to look for. This really helps.
You're
out.
saying this is a learned behavior,
Yeah,
as
totally.
opposed to just like an intuition.
Totally learned. So like my kids all the time, they'll be like, "Dad, the milk says it expired yesterday. Is it still okay to drink?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, smell it. If it smells gross, then no, right?" But like it would be beneficial for people that maybe don't have the vast experience that you guys have and not have to learn through getting ill.
All the
No,
people.
it is not alert. You don't need to learn it. It's completely intuitive.
You
Like if
listen to this.
more. No,
Listen,
There's
no, hold
science
on a
behind
second.
it. Like,
Conspiracy theorist Dan, you
That's
of
like-
all people should be saying the reason the expiration date is on this food is so that they sell more of it.
No, totally. But it's,
okay,
here's
of
the thing.
course.
Here's the thing. It's
too
an
new to say it.
organic. It's an organic. The reason why those dates aren't necessarily accurate. One, I do think that they try to cover themselves from lawsuits. It's hard to predict when a certain food is going to go bad, other than using common metrics. Basically averages, right?
Science?
So
Or-
like in science, they know that maybe like milk. It all depends on temperature stored and all that other crap, right? But at the end of the day, like as a consumer, you can save a lot of money by using common sense and your experience as knowing, hey, if I have milk and the expiration date was last week and I smell it and it smells fine, then it's probably good. I'm going to pour it and then I'm going to taste it. If it still tastes good, it's good, right?
You're going to
But-
the taste test on it?
There's
Why
a,
not?
there's
But I
a
wouldn't
level-
do that.
nibble,
I
not
would
like
not
a-
do that with chicken. I would definitely not do that with chicken, pork, things like that, which actually can
shrimp.
send you to the hospital.
You do not F with shrimp. You know what? If you don't eat the shrimp after you cook it, it's pretty much done. I want to know where your like expertise in food edibility subjectivity comes in, because for
All right,
me,
Nick.
it's like I worked in restaurants for decades, and we've all been bachelors and had to make that call. But what
Right.
about like you seem especially good at it. I think we're a kindred spirit in that regard.
Especially that's I think especially good is an incorrect statement. I think maybe he's just tolerant.
I mean, there might be some of that too, but I mean, like, I really do feel like it's totally intuitive, and people they think about it way too much. When I was home for Christmas this past time, my parents they had to leave. I was staying with my parents. They had to leave the house for a couple days to go to Albany.
Did you have
and
bologna?
I was left to my own devices in the house, and I found some yogurt that appeared perfectly good.
No.
And
But
I
there's
ate
a
it.
date
it
on
was,
it.
No, it was. I didn't look at the date. It had the separation that you're talking about,
Right.
with the water coming out,
So
and I
you
just
stirred
stirred
it.
it really thoroughly.
Yeah.
I ate it. I was fine.
That
And then my
doesn't-
mom
wait,
came
water
home
doesn't
and
mean
said, "You didn't eat that, did you?" And I was like, "Of course I did. I eat a lot of yogurt. I feel like I'm really good at telling when yogurt is bad." And she was like, "That was from the last time you came home."
Dude,
3
which
years
was,
ago.
which was early October, so it was about 3 months before.
Wow,
and I was fine, and it didn't smell bad. And I think it's just that's why you don't need the expiration date. I smelled it, I tasted it tasted fine, nothing happened. If I've eaten bad things before, and usually I know that I'm eating something that's on the cusp, and I'm risking it.
I want to know what the cusp is for you.
How about this?
Dude,
How about
his cusp is like way out there.
What if? All right, so like I know everyone here has eaten at a food cart and have gotten food poisoning,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm. So wouldn't this be handy in that scenario where you weren't necessarily the
Yeah,
one?
but
Be the guy
preparing-
in line like, no,
I don't think it would tell you. I don't think this thing would tell you about food poisoning though, because that's like bacteria. I mean, this thing tells you what.
I think it does. I think it's
ammonia
looking at the
content.
ammonia levels, and that's
Would that?
I mean, I've definitely eaten like food cart with chicken or whatever, and going. Something tastes a little off, but I'm really hungry. I'm just gonna keep eating it, which I think happens to you. You just handle it
Guilty.
better, and where I'm like an hour later dying. You know what I mean? Like,
it's gauging quality and freshness is what they say.
I still think. I mean, because food poisoning is. I mean, that's bacteria, right?
you know,
Yeah.
yogurt's a really bad example too, because that's a cultured food, which can necessarily, if you let yogurt go bad, it becomes cottage cheese, right?
I don't know if
Along
that's
that sense? I don't
think
how
that's
exactly that works.
True.
I don't know. Well, see, that's a question somebody could email in. podcast@digitaltrends.com.
We're the food science
We'll
podcast
find
now.
out what is the cusp for Nick. What's the cutoff of yogurt before it's too bad to eat?
I don't think I've ever actually. Okay, if it's. If it has a giant like scum of mold on top, that's
A
giant one. A little bit of mold.
Yeah. Well, obviously, cheese with mold doesn't phase him at all. Like, it's not the cutoff part, because we've all done that, cutting mold out cheese.
Yeah,
but
all
he's
right, I've
actually
done that.
eating the cheese with mold on it.
like a little mold, not like a giant scab of mold.
What is the difference? It's just
A
a
scab
larger
of mold.
area versus a small area.
Wow. All right.
That's a big difference.
I love that Nick has become like the Elton Brown of our podcast today. That's so awesome. We didn't even talk
fine
about how
wine.
the device works or whatever.
No.
Like its validity. No, I want to see people walking through like Albertsons and Fred Meyer's with the, going up to the meat counter guy and be like, hey, can I see that steak really quick? And then reaching out with the food sniffer and like, yeah, that'll do, I guess. That looks pretty good. You got any pork chops?
You're going to go to the yogurt section and just find a bunch of lids
Start
off.
cracking open yogurt foils.
How many scabs of mold do you have on your yogurt, please?
Do you have expired meat? I'd like to check it.
All right. I think
That's
I think-
still good.
Yeah, I think it's scab of mold. I think we're good.
What about green meat? Will you eat green meat?
I've never encountered green meat.
Not even like green ground beef, dude.
No.
That stuff is, when they age steaks, like, have you not noticed in the New York hotel, like, well, nobody's noticing anything there, but when you go by the steak area, they've got the meat aging in that little cool room.
Yeah,
Most of
outside
it has
the-
a green cast to it, and that's intentional. And that's where the flavor's at.
Well, they are introducing
my kind of meat.
that in a controlled environment. But what about
That's
just
true.
a green steak that's been in your fridge for like 2 months?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not.
Have you eaten steak that's been in your fridge for 2 months?
No. I tried.
I think we have a new experiment.
There is
Yeah.
a line. I tried about a week ago. I had some chicken. It was in those like.
Just where
There are no scabs involved. Don't worry about it.
I reached the line. I had some chicken.
No,
is where I just
didn't.
kind of went.
It was
oh
in
my
those
gosh.
like vacuum packed things. I let it sit in my fridge for a while, and then I realized I wasn't gonna have time to eat it. I froze it, and then I thawed it. And when I like cut open the vacuum sealed bags, I mean,
kinda
it just
farted.
erupted. It
Erupted.
smelled so bad. Like I could not get that stink
It's
out of
like
my
a little
kitchen.
mold, though, right?
No, it was not at all. I not only tossed that immediately, I had to take the bag outside my house immediately because the contamination was so bad. It
So
was just
you didn't
stinking up
seal
whole
in the
kitchen.
flavor, you sealed in the stank, and then
Yeah,
you
it was-
froze it,
I had
and then you
frozen
brought it
stink
back
in
to
my
life.
You
freezer,
could have
yeah.
totally fried that, and it would have been fine, man.
A little coconut oil.
Oh God! All right, I don't think I can do anymore.
Greg is about to be
Nibbler's
sick.
not eating dinner
He really
tonight.
doesn't like those
Seriously.
mold scabs.
How do you know when water's bad?
Water gets better when it sits on your dresser overnight.
Gather some lint
Yeah.
from your underwear
Does it
drawer.
work?
Send us an email, podcast@digitaltrends.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and go to iTunes, subscribe, do everything there.
And send us some damn email, would you?
Send us some questions.
We love that stuff.
A question even like that, yeah. How long would it take for something to go bad for Nick to eat it? Like, a question along those lines.
We should totally take a reader suggestion. Like come up with something like, have Nick try.
What won't Nick eat?
The next
jackass.
podcast, see if Mikey likes it.
On
It's
the
like-
next Trends with Benefits.
Also, don't forget, we're going to have drunk podcast soon.
All right, we want to do that?
Yeah.
All right, let's
we
do
need
it.
to do it where shots are being had,
Okay.
even if it's just by me.
We have 9% beer in the.
Let's
the
come
office.
up
I
with
don't
a
even think we
game.
need shots.
We got to come up with a game
I
where
need
like
shots.
we don't
Okay.
know what the rules are.
We can do
only
a-
Nibbler does.
We can do a game with that.
And then like when one of us hit one of those rolls, Nib's like,
Bam.
you got to drink.
All right.
Oh, man,
Okay.
that's going to be fun.
All right, we'll do that. We'll plan that pretty soon. So, Trends with Benefits. Tell everybody, subscribe on Stitcher, iTunes, all those things. We'll be back next week with another one.